Today's guest is Paul Deatherage, an accomplished drummer, percussion, and educator based in central Kentucky. Paul's a versatile performer, regularly playing with ensembles like DiMartino Osland Jazz Orchestra, Grupo LexiSamba, and the Raleigh Dailey Trio, showcasing his expertise across a wide range of styles. In addition to performing, Paul is a dedicated educator serving on the faculty at the University of Kentucky and Central College, as well as teaching percussion at Lafayette High School, home of a 23-time state champion marching band. Join us as we explore Paul's journey as a performer and educator, his insights on percussion, and his contributions to the vibrant Kentucky music scene. So, Paul, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So we're wrapping up the end of 2024, going into 2025. The last time we had gotten work together was 2018, I believe, or 2019, something like that. Definitely before the pandemic. So kind of wrap me up. What's been going on with you in the last year, towards the end of the year, or anything exciting to look forward to musically in 2025?
Well, I do a lot of teaching, and one cool thing that's been going on with my teaching is our high school, Lafayette High School, the percussion ensemble was selected to perform at the Kentucky Music Educators Association conference in Louisville in February. So that's probably the first exciting thing to happen related to what I do. And Lafayette has also, as you talked about their victories, they won state again, actually for the 24th time, and then 2 months ago, they won a Bands of America marching band competition, and that was a regional championship in Johnson City, Tennessee, a little bit before that. So that's all exciting things going on with my teaching. Another exciting thing is that at University of Kentucky, couple of my students got selected. I'm sorry, I should say they played with the UK Jazz Ensemble, which was selected to play at Midwest, and they just played last night, and they were joined by Jeff Coffin as a guest artist. So that was really exciting for them.
Yeah, that's a heavy figure in the industry.
Yeah, so I'm really happy for my students right now. They're all doing so well. Also, my stepsons. One of them is a trumpet player, and the other one is a percussionist. And the trumpet player is, they both got accepted into All-State like a few days ago. And the percussionist got into, as a ninth grader, he got into the upper Central Kentucky Youth Jazz Orchestra group. So he got into the high school group as a freshman, and he's really excited about that. So yeah, I'm excited for my students all around and my stepsons. It's really a lot of fun.
No, that's a lot to look forward to. And you do a lot of teaching, but you're also a performer. Mm-hmm. When you have that schedule where you're running from, teaching to gigs, that sort of thing, does it sometimes feel like two separate worlds for you, or you're just kind of living in the moment? Or do you separate those two things, the teaching and the playing? Or if you do, how do you separate them?
Well, my playing certainly inspires my teaching. Yeah, especially on the jazz
you're
side.
always learning things on the bandstand, you mean? Or
yeah, and also it keeps the spark alive and the excitement alive that I can hope to purvey to my students. If I didn't perform, I might be a less inspired teacher. Maybe I should say that.
Yeah, there are so many educators out there who teach, but they don't do any gigs at all. And I think you kind of have to be doing at least some gigs, even, every now and then to, I don't want to say assert your musical personality, but to keep it alive, so to speak.
Yeah. And it's really hard to schedule sometimes, though. Like I'm teaching at 4 schools if you include the middle school, which I don't even list that on there, but so that, and then I play 2 to 3 nights a week, and that's now that it's Christmas season, it's a little bit more than that. But yeah, it's hard to keep those things scheduled. Like there was a call for a really cool gig, or I think it's going to be a cool gig, and it's the same day as that KMEA performance that I was talking about coming up, the percussion ensemble that I teach. So I hope that I can make the two work out. But the gig is like almost 3 hours away from the conference. So
Yeah. I mean, I mean, 4 schools, that's a lot. That's a lot. It's, do you feel that, anymore? So, like when you're teaching the college students, that you're kind of getting to showcase, what you really are passionate about, which I know you're a big jazz person and everything, but, or is it all just kind of the same? Like I'm giving my true self in every situation.
the college, I think what you said, the college does give me a way to purvey the more passionate side of my performance. I do play a little bit of classical music here and there. In 2024, I've had several opportunities to play with the Lexington Philharmonic Orchestra, which is kind of a newer thing for me. I mean, I played in orchestra when I was in school, but this year they happened to have several performances where drum set was necessary.
Oh,
And
you're
then,
playing drum set with them.
yes, but also if there's another piece that requires a supporting role percussion, bass drum, crash cymbals, that kind of stuff, then I do that as well. So that's a new 2024 thing that's been going on for me. That's kind of cool, and I feel maybe a little bit more inspired to teach the classical stuff as well now. But generally speaking, my drum set students at University of Kentucky have always seen the purveyance of my more passionate side of performance for sure.
Do your students at the college come out to hear you play? And
Yeah,
do you let
yeah.
them sit in, or they just kind of want to watch?
It's never a jam session scenario.
Hmm.
It wouldn't make sense for them to sit in the places that I play.
Right.
If it's at the school, it'll be on a stage. If it's at a restaurant, then it's it doesn't make sense.
It may not be the most appropriate thing to do, just, when
Mhm.
you're there to work and everything.
Right. We have had some jam session series that we've like even at Creo where you and I played together.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there were some Sunday night jam sessions, and I was the host drummer for those. So of course my students would sit in there. But Creo has unfortunately shut down in the last year.
I know, that's such a shame. It was such a cool place to play. I mean, has any place kind of taken over and become sort of the jazz, venue in a way?
Um, I have high hopes that Carson's will bring back the jazz. They had jazz there regularly up until the pandemic. Then they stopped having it. And now they've opened a second restaurant, and it's a larger restaurant. There's more parking. There's more space for a band. And this New Year's Eve, I'm going to play at Carson's again for the first time since 2019.
Oh, that'll feel good, right?
Yeah, and I hope that it's a sign of things to come for that restaurant.
Yeah. Playing this music, jazz, does not happen by accident. I don't think so. Something has to happen. We have to hear a certain recording, maybe study with a certain teacher, go to a concert. What was it for you that made you really pursue the music?
Well, I want to step back a little earlier in my life just to speak on the love of improvisation. Generally speaking, I had a real interest in improvisation before I knew what jazz was. I grew up listening to hard rock and heavy metal, that kind of stuff. And when I was 13, I had a band and we played cover songs and that kind of thing. But then one time, my older sister was babysitting me. My parents were out of town. And it was snowing. So in Tennessee, we were out of school all week because of that. So she had a bunch of friends over who were in a rock band together. So we had 2 drum sets set up. And again, I was like in the 8th grade. So they all started playing these blues progressions, and I was just playing along with the other drummer. And what struck me was it wasn't like playing cover songs. It felt like anything could happen, really. And that was the first spark that I had where I really, really loved improvised music. So from that point on, my rock band friends and I would just jam. We wouldn't try to learn covers. So that was the first love of improv, of a sort. And then the first album that really sparked it for me, though, was whenever I got to undergrad. I had sort of gotten out of heavy metal by that point, and I got into undergrad, and one of the guys who, this was in 2001 at Tennessee Tech, and I went down to the media center in the library, and that was how you had access to music back then. You know, you had to get CDs.
You gotta go somewhere in person.
Yeah, Napster existed, but it was risky, and also I didn't know what to search for. So, but a guy who played trombone was working the desk at the media center. So I asked him, "Hey, what are some good drummers to listen to?" So he got me a small stack of CDs. He got me Clifford Brown and Max Roach. He got me Kind of Blue, and he got me Art Blakey, Mosaic.
Like three of the most iconic jazz records in history.
Yeah, and I listened to Mosaic like nonstop. The fire of Art Blakey, that really appealed to my heavy metal side, and like my just the energy behind it really spoke to me. I listened to that album incessantly. I also listened to the other two incessantly, and you know I could sing along with all the solos and all that, but Art Blakey was the one that really had me hooked.
Yeah, I mean, and when you watch him play behind any of the videos of him and stuff, there was so much joy and inspiration, like bringing that to the bandstand. It was, you know what I mean? Like, and when you hear the soloists sometimes on those recordings, they're just playing just the most simplest bluesy type stuff, but just so happy, some of it, you know what I mean? And he was one of the greats, unquestionably. Yeah. So that was the one that really, you liked that because it had the energy of like the heavy metal. When you're going from playing heavy metal and hard rock to playing jazz, you have to unlearn quite a lot of things.
Yeah, that's true.
Are there any things that stick out you had to unlearn, like whether it's like sticking stuff or dynamics that you really recall, like this is like really hard to eliminate from my playing to play this music?
Certainly touch, yes. And but at the time I was going to study classical music anyway, so I had to get better about that in general. So those things, I didn't have a drum set teacher until after undergrad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was at the tail end of undergrad. See, I did so much drum set growing up. So I had a lot of catching up to do on the classical stuff, and I was a music education major. So I had to learn mallet percussion a lot better, plus all of my secondary instruments in order to be trained to become a band director. So I had to get good at piano and trumpet and saxophone. And,
yeah, as I say, if people don't know what the secondary instruments are, that's all the woodwinds and the brass, all that stuff.
Yeah, I had to learn every instrument in the band and also a couple orchestra instruments too. I wasn't very good at those. And I had to learn how to conduct, and I had to learn how to arrange, and all these things. So I was relearning a whole lot back then. So one specific example, though, which came later, I was always playing bass drum with my heel up and using my leg to play. And you can learn to play softly that way. And I did, but after undergrad, I went to audition at University of North Texas, and Ed Soph was checking out my playing. I was auditioning for him. It was he and I alone in his office. And regarding my comping, he said, "Well, you really need to learn to play with your right heel down, because right now your dynamic levels in your bass drum, you're either quiet or Armageddon." Because it's so tempting to engage the leg whenever you're in that position already. So I had learned to play softly, but I never forced myself to learn to play only from the ankle. So that was a big thing that I had to unlearn whenever it came to playing jazz.
So you auditioned to North Texas for
Masters.
Master's degree.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I didn't make it though. Like I said, I was self-taught until the very tail end of undergrad whenever it came to drum set. And I was a music education major, so I was missing all but a couple credits which would be considered necessary to start a jazz program. Like
Well,
all I have jazz
everyone has
improv.
their own journey. Like, but now you're doing these four schools and working so much, and you were a classical percussionist. Before that, you played rock drum. It's like this story is just, you know what I mean? Like everyone, this is just unique to you. And I didn't get into a bunch of schools I applied for my man. I got into other ones, but you know what I mean? It makes you who you are today on the
Mhm.
instrument.
Yeah, that's true.
So as far as like, let's say you could, if you're giving advice to your younger self, would it have been to like check out those jazz recordings, or do you think it would have been to maybe get a different teacher? If you were giving advice to the younger you, what do you think you would say?
I would have honestly, I would have told myself to listen to my teachers more than I was willing to do sometimes. You know.
That's a classic one, right?
Hmm.
And when you're mentoring your students now at the college, I'm sure you're teaching them about all the technical things about playing the music and stuff and all the rudimentary things. What's something unconventional that you want them to know about the life of being a professional musician that you think is like your personal take on the whole life and profession?
Something unconventional. Um, I think from my experience that they have to know that their path is their own, and it might be a windy path. For
Just like
me,
we're talking about.
yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing that they're going to have to pursue this and find the path that makes the most sense to them. It's not. It's very rarely directly from point A to point B.
I'm so glad we're talking about this because, at times we might feel like our path, it's like, I don't mean, I felt this way many times in my life, but it's like almost like, why me? Why couldn't I have just learned that earlier or something, or had that chance later or earlier? You know what I mean? But it's like at the end of the day, there, it's really just all in our heads, and that everyone is going through something kind of similar. You know?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Whenever I was rejected at UNT for their graduate jazz studies, I was really heartbroken.
Yeah, I understand.
Thought I was set out. I mean, I was 22, and my perspective on the world was pretty narrow. Having grown up in a smaller town, and then I went to a slightly larger town, but it's really not a big town either. So I thought I was hot stuff. I was playing with the faculty jazz group as an undergraduate, so I thought that meant something. But really, no, it was my teachers being great teachers and giving me experiences. It wasn't because I deserved it. So, yeah, that was the first revelation that like this is going to be harder than I thought. This is going to who knows where I'm going to actually wind up doing this.
Was that the first like real musical like let's let down, let's say, or at that point?
Uh, yeah, that's the first big one that I can recall.
Yeah, and you've already been playing at that point for a long time.
Hmm.
So you said you were heartbroken. What got you through that? Was it was it the music that got you? Like was it like practicing more and using that to get better as motivation?
Yes. What I really, really liked about my meeting with Ed Soph was that he was willing to give me the time of day. And, we talked and he got a sense of my background at the time, which was I loved jazz. I had tons of recordings and I had done some transcription and stuff. And I was playing a lot. So he knew that I was really, really motivated. He also was being realistic with me about not being able to let me in as a graduate student. So I said, well, what do I need to do?
So he told you face to face.
He told me face to face things that I needed to work on. And like, I mean, long-term things, very, very wise things.
Now you probably are like, yeah, he was knew he was right. I needed to work on
Oh
this
yeah,
thing.
he was spot on. And it was, advice that would help any drummer for the rest of their life. You know, it's like very, very good wisdom on how to learn from the masters and not just through recordings and through more detailed transcription, and not just through books, and not just through playing with your school bands.
Yeah, there's also the experience that you have to just get playing the music with people, like
Certainly.
like live. Also, you know what I mean? Like you can't get that anywhere else except there and then playing for people in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have to say that my upbringing as a jazz musician is different than that of my students because I was self-taught on drum set. I was, like I said, I was learning classical percussion and all the secondary instruments and all that stuff, but I had a 2-night-a-week gig, even in undergrad, and the leader of that band was a retired saxophone professor. And that was a super huge part of my musical upbringing, for
Like
sure.
a straight ahead jazz gig.
Yeah, straight ahead jazz gig twice a week, and I learned so much in that band. Yeah.
Like just calling tunes on the spot, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
What was the first one like with that person? Do you remember it?
Yeah, we were playing a dance, and he had a binder which was full of lead sheets that he handed us, but he didn't have enough to go around. So I didn't really know that much about form. I had attended I attended the Jamie Aebersold summer jazz camp when I was 19, and that was my first real glimpse into understanding form.
Hmm.
So I had some things rattling around in my brain from that experience, but I hadn't really had a chance to put it into practice yet. So that first dance performance, he could tell that I heard where the bridge was, and I could tell where it was coming from. After that, he said, "Hey, you've got an ear. I can tell that you know where you are." So that was very encouraging at the time, and that became something that I've strived to always be aware of, which, of course, it's like the most essential thing playing with a band. But when I was really young, it was mostly big band at my undergraduate school at the time. So those sort of combo experiences, we had to come up with them on our own.
Yeah, I love your story. It's so cool to hear. And like I think that's, the times we've played together, it's always been enjoyable for me. And I could tell it's enjoyable if like, a musician in the ensemble can like pull stuff out of me, you know what I mean? That like I want to be able to execute, but the way they play is really helping me execute it. So and your story is definitely part of that. Um, what do you define at this point in your life? You're a little older. What does success mean to you in this business?
Well, I guess not having to rely on a unrelated vocation,
Yeah.
just in a
Hmm.
broadly speaking. But then if you think in more detail, if we're talking about music performance, then I rely on teaching, you know. So am I really successful? In this business as a musician, yes, I'm a performer and a teacher, but I don't have to wait tables at this point. So that's cool. There are a lot of really wonderful musicians who need to do that, but I think that that's just a product of where I live in the country.
Have you always made it like your goal? Like I want music to be my source of income. Like it's been a conscious thought. You know what I mean? Like where some people will separate that. Like, oh, I'm gonna do the gigs I want to do, but then I'm gonna do something else. Like, but you've like consciously said like, I want my day to day to be music.
Yes. Yeah, and by the time you get through undergrad and graduate school, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Like you've invested so much time and energy into it and money, like you've got to do what you can to make it work out. And as far as the teaching gigs go, I was just lucky to be the right person at the right time in the right place, you know. And
Well, you're still teaching at those universities, so you're obviously doing something that's contributing.
oh yeah, yeah, I've taught at UK since 2010, and I've taught at Center since 2018.
Where's Center College at? Where's that?
That
In
is a smaller liberal arts college. It's in Danville, Kentucky, which is a
Danville.
45-minute drive away from here. It's about 45 minutes southwest of Lexington.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. No, this, Paul, it's such a great, thing to get. I'm glad we got a chance to catch up. I haven't been to the Midwest in a bit, but next time I'm there, I hope we'll play again and stuff. Where can everyone find you? Your website, all that stuff, for the audience.
Uh, PaulDeatherage.com. So you got to spell my name correctly for that, though. So hopefully, if this is, you'll see how to spell the name on the podcast. But yeah,
Yes.
just myname.com.
Easy enough, right?
Yep.